You are now live.
Okay, so this is Senate Appropriations Committee, and we're taking up first bill, H436, which is the miscellaneous changes to Vermont tax law. And we have to present the bill, Senator Cummings. I gather you're the reporter of the bill. And
I am.
we also have Abby Shepard, who can do a quick run through on the bill. And then the committee needs to just make a decision around an amendment proposal coming from Senator Perchlik as to whether we want to offer it or whether we just suggest he offer it individually to get a clarification on the sales tax relative to pellets, depending on where they're being purchased. So with that, Abby, if you want to bring up the
Well,
quick
if Abby wants to do that, or I can run through it and Abby can correct me if I get it wrong. It'll be
Okay,
good practice for the floor.
All right. Well, either way is fine. If you want to
Okay.
run through, it's mostly, I gather, clarifications and.
Until we get to the decorations that Senate Finance put on.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
We're ready.
Okay, section 1, that just clarifies that if you have Uber Eats deliver a meal to your house, the charge that Uber charges, no matter in what form, is subject to the rooms and meals tax. Section 2 makes it clear that in the limited instances in which food is served, basically by your fire department, cooked and served by them in the fire station, that if they also are serving alcohol, it is also exempt from rooms and meals.
These are all consistent. There's no difference between the House and the Senate then in these sections.
These were all in the House bill.
Okay.
Section 3 right now, if you make a mistake on your household income, you can correct that, but that's all you can correct on your property tax statement. This allows other fields to be corrected. House value or ownership percentages usually causes a problem, and it's limited to these because these have no impact on municipal clerks or taxation. These are all within the tax department and is the proposal of the taxpayer advocate and the tax commissioner. Section 4 through 8 allows the tax commissioner to accept all payment types that conform to current department policy rather than spelling out in statute what payment types are acceptable for what taxes. Payment types, especially online types, are changing, and this allows the tax commissioner flexibility. Okay. Let's see, 9 through 10. Replaces an inadvertently repealed subsection in current use. It was one of those drafting errors from last year. Section 11 creates the new statutory purpose, and this is, okay, the Senate added. In order to do the tax, whatever the study we do of tax exemptions, tax expenditure study, there needs to be a legislative purpose. The one we didn't put in was when we took the sales tax off paper bags you have to buy in the grocery store if you don't bring yours. And this gives a statement of purpose. And then we are adding feminine hygiene products, the original S53 that got voted out of the Senate, to the tax exempt line. And this also gives a statement of purpose for that. And then section 11A does create that exemption for feminine hygiene products. That is S53. We're back to the House bill. It increases, section 12 increases the town clerk's fees from $10 to $15 per page on recordings, strongly supported by the clerks. It extends the sunset for home health agency assessments, and section 14 extends the sunset for allocation of the healthcare claims tax revenues to the health IT fund from July 1, 2021 to 2023. Same with the home health agencies tax. Section 15 amends the manufacturers prescribe products to report and pay. Okay, this is the Attorney General's. They get a report in January from the pharmaceutical manufacturers if they've made any expenditures in the state. That's due in July. They frequently just say, yes, we've made expenditures. And then when they have to report in April, they go back and check and find out they haven't. This means that during the pandemic that somebody had to go in and write a paper check. This just says everything's due, I believe it is April 1st, so that the report and the check come in together and they reflect the same thing. Purely housekeeping. Okay, this is workers' comp, section 16. The contribution, this is for the cost of the department, remains the same in 22 as 21 at 1.4% of insurance premiums and 1% for self-insured workers. There are effective dates, none of which I think have changed, but that's under education property tax. We do have a new yield in there because the Senate in the yield bill, the finance has chosen not to reduce the property tax rate from this year. As it came to us, it came down 1.5 cents or percent. But that was before we moved the teachers' health care in there to the tune of $13 million, which just happens to be about what was on the bottom line. So we ate the bottom line. We didn't lower the tax rate, and we kept the money on the bottom line because we still have 8 million we voted that will probably flow through. Plus everything is up in the air with school funding. I'm a little more concerned about the cost of remediation for radon. You do usually vent the basement. It usually costs about $2,000, but I'm not sure what you do with a 4-story building. Okay, this we added items that were also in the yield bill from the House. I'm not sure why it's showing in the Senate. I guess because we added it to miscellaneous tax, but that's the exclusion of the excess spending penalty calculation for capital projects when granted preliminary approval. This was, people weren't getting preliminary approval. It technically is still on the books from when we actually had assistance for capital. Some, if you went in and you got approval, it wasn't excess spending, but a lot of school districts just did it on their own dollar because we don't have any money for capital, and they didn't get approval, and they are now hitting the excess spending funds. This just puts everyone on a field, creates a 3.5 hold harmless provision for determining school districts' weighted membership. That's a hold harmless on the weighted membership. You can't go down or up more than 3.5% a year. And they told us this would not create the ghost students that we had last time. We did hold harmless, but it does give a cushion to schools, I believe, Abby, as from violent swings in their student count, especially during this past year and this year, where many parents are choosing to homeschool during the pandemic. So this will provide some stability to schools. Section 20 allows a school district that received a small schools grant in FY 2020 to continue to receive an annual small school grant. This makes it everybody. We originally, when we did the merger bill, we only allowed that small school grant to carry over to schools that voluntarily merged. It was part of the carrot. Now that they've all merged either voluntarily or involuntarily, this just says everybody can continue it. These were all in, those sections were all in the yield bill as it came to us from the House. Then we get back to Senate. There's two studies. One is to look at ways we might assist towns with appraising high value or unique commercial properties. This has to do with a digester in somewhere down south, and the town has no idea how you appraise a digester. We've done this with dams, and I believe the town of Rockingham for years. They're just unique projects. This is a study only. Tax Commission's already working on something similar, and the same with the next one. Just asking, is there a way we could report out with a little more granularity that non-homestead properties, you know, how many are hunting camps and how many are McMansions kinds of things. They are looking already at how they report. So these will, they're just studies and they're already partially underway. Okay. And Abby wrote this, so I'll look to her, but basically what the committee did as we started the session, we had not passed through linkage, and the not linking retrospectively or to the federal tax code, which caused us issues this year, were very important to the House. And so we linked to 2020, Abby, which did not have the PPP forgiveness, and it didn't have the expansion of the earned income tax credit or the child care tax credit in it. The committee was very clear. They wanted to do the EITC extension. These are for 1 year only right now, federally, and they wanted to do the child care 1 year. We took a lot of testimony on passing PPP in. We definitely, it just got to be really confusing because some of the expenditures had already been taken last year when you paid the payroll, but your loan may not have been transferred to a grant until this year, and others, your grant. And we admitted there were small businesses we really wanted to allow not to pay the taxes because you can't use the grant to pay the taxes. So you'd have to come up with tax money when you were already struggling. I think the deciding point was when there was new ARPA clarity, and we had Steve Klein on this that said that if you conform to if there's a revenue loss conforming to ARPA income tax codes, you can use ARPA money. And that made our life a lot easier. And so we are passing on, and I believe we changed the linkage back to March for these issues only back to March, but we kept the original linkage. So I think the House is happy with that. We'll find out. Yes, and then there is the Burlington Waterfront Tax Increment Financing District. This was a late entry brought to us by the auditor. Apparently we have allowed, because of the giant hole in the ground and the issues caused by that, the Burlington Waterfront TIF, and these all were, Burlington's TIFs were formed before we did a universal TIF bill. Their TIF, if they go into that, will go like 15 years without a scheduled audit. That was making the auditor hyperventilate. There's a lot of money at play. The fly in the ointment is that Burlington is scheduled to have an audit on their downtown TIF this year. And they, and I think reasonably so, have said to do an audit takes a lot of time and it costs a lot of money. And we really don't want to have to do them back to back. The auditor was talking about replacing downtown with the waterfront and moving downtown forward. Burlington basically just said, no, this is, you know, we don't want to. We couldn't get any, I couldn't send anybody to the hall. So this is in, I think I was clear that if the people involved can come to an agreement, it can be dealt with in conference, but that it seems unreasonable, given the amount of money and the issues with that TIF right now, that it goes for 15 years without an audit. The rest of it is effective dates, right? Yep.
So in the end, we know that I think it was about 8 million was the cost of those 1 year EITC and child credit.
And
that can be dealt with, and it's a one-time, not an ongoing obligation at this point. Any of the other changes did not really affect the revenues, so that we would have to go in and alter the bottom line for the budget. It sounds like there's the one clarification on the just on the pellets, where there seems to be disparate treatment. But I don't see that there's anything that changes the overall revenues to the state. Senator Baruth?
And I don't think my question affects the revenues either, but I wanted to ask Ann about the small schools grants piece. And I'm curious to know where that came from. First of all, what's the origin of that? And then second of all, whether the education committee had a look at that.
It came to us on the House bill. I don't know. And I know that the House has been very interested in this, and that there are members with lots of small schools. I think it got presented to us as an equity issue, that some schools now get to, you know, to get that grant and others don't. And now that they're all merged, our reason for taking away. I will say I wasn't that comfortable, but it just was a small issue.
If I could say, they're no longer called small schools grants.
No, they aren't.
For a reason. They're called merger support grants.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in other words, there's about a 6-year trend in policy to reduce the number of small school grants. and to save money that way. So when we did Act 46, part of the savings that we calculated was the reduction in the number of merger support grants. So I don't have a dog in the fight anymore, but Senator Campion does, I think. So I think it would be odd if the Education Committee wasn't made, aware of this change, because every change in the small school grant has come out of the Ed Committee until this one, as I remember. So I don't know, Madam Chair, what to do with that, but I do think it's
I will drop him an email and ask him to look at section 26, right?
Okay.
No, that's what
Whatever
I've
it
got
is,
up.
I think that would be the best.
Yeah, I will do that.
Protocol. Okay.
Yeah, I will do that right now. I just got to find the appropriate section. Or maybe, is Abby still here? Yes. Abby, can you just send an email on my behalf? Because I've got 1 minute to get to finance
Okay.
and ask them to
Sure.
look at the appropriate section.
So,
And just to clarify, this came from the Yield Bill H-152, and it was committed
Yes.
to the Committee on Education for some time. So I
Was it in Senate
Taken it out.
Education? Yeah.
it was
Okay.
before it went to
Yeah.
finance.
So they have seen it.
okay.
oh,
Okay.
Okay.
good.
So then
All
we
right,
don't
I'll
need to
clarify.
send an
So I
email.
guess you can cancel the request, Abby.
Okay.
So the chair has to leave. We've got a run through. We've tried to see what the impact, and it seems like the biggest one was the one we've already had, and that was the federal tax treatment policies around EITC, which was expanding, and the other was the child credit. So, and now I'm just going to ask the committee, is the preference to have Senator Perchlik issue the amendment to around clarifying?
I have
Yes.
to leave, okay? That's
all
fine.
right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So my question is, should we just say we will offer it? It is only being brought to us by him, or would it be our preference that he, since he identified the issue, bring the amendment? Senator Starr. You're muted.
What is it that he actually wants to do?
He wants to clarify that when then pellets are bought for residential use, that they are not subject to sales tax.
Yeah.
And right now, it's very clear if you're having a delivery to your home, et cetera, that it's residential and what it would do. And I think he may have sent a copy. Did it go out to everybody? Maybe not.
I'm going to forward it to the committee right now.
Okay.
Because if it's to exempt individual bags, when you go to your supplier and buy like 5 bags or 10 bags, those should be exempt. And if that's what he's trying to do, I just soon add it right in.
How does it work with wood? If you get a cord of wood, is that taxable?
You don't-
You mean when you not have it delivered to your home, but you buy it
Well, you
in
have
bundles?
somebody deliver it to your home, a
Oh,
truckload.
well, that's
not
exempt.
That's exempt. And if you,
Yeah.
So,
That, and and it's very clear when it's a home delivery. The issue, I believe, is when the pellets or the bags are bought, like at your, I don't know, at a home supply area. And some are collecting it and some are not. So Abby, do you want to just speak to this? And then, but my fundamental question is, if the goal is to make it clear that if it's for residential purposes, it shouldn't matter if you picked it up at the home supply or had it delivered, it's not subject to sales tax. Is that a correct portrayal, Abby?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
So
Madam Chair.
the question for this committee is, do we want to offer the amendment on this clarification, or do we want to have Senator Perchlik offer it himself? Senator Westman.
is this belts and suspenders? Because they don't tax them now.
They are, apparently. It's a
Oh.
mixed bag.
aren't. It's a
Well-
mixed bag now. Some do charge, some don't charge,
Why
but
wouldn't the tax department put out a bulletin?
Abby, can you just clarify this for us? Is this something that can be done administratively, or does it require statutory clarification?
It does require statutory clarification, so for the record,
That was my
Legislative
question.
Council. And I'm not aware of any recent technical bulletins, since this language was originally in S56, the beginning of the section. I admit I haven't looked at the department's website on this particular issue. I can check, but I'm fairly certain based on regulations and statute that this does need clarification, because some sellers, when an individual goes to buy bags of pellets, some sellers are charging them automatically sales tax, others are not, because the exemption is for residential use of fuels, including for heating. So it is challenging for a seller to know. And some who were not charging were then audited and didn't understand under the law. It wasn't clear to them. So this was sought by Senator Persick to make it clear that wood pellets, in particular and I hope you have the language in front of you, but I could also share my screen if you'd like. Wood pellets sold to an individual on the vendor's premises or delivered to an individual's residence shall be presumed to be purchased for residential use, because that's what the exemption is for, and shall be exempt sales. It does also include this caveat, unless the vendor knew or ought reasonably to have known that the wood pellets were not purchased for residential sale use. So if there's, an individual showing up and buying wood pellets on a business account, then that's clearly not residential use.
So we're still back to the fundamental question. Do we as a committee, I want to amend the bill, or do we want to just have Senator Perchlik offer the amendment on his own behalf? It's getting us into tax issues, but so.
Right.
I
Senator-
just don't include it.
All right.
But-
Senator Westman?
Well, I'm easy either way on it. I still don't understand why, when there's this kind of confusion, the Department of Taxes hasn't done a bulletin. Because normally in this case, they would do a detailed bulletin that would highlight for businesses what is taxable and what's not. Just saying.
I think we should do it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm fine with doing it.
Well, if we getting back to Abby's comment about does this need statutory clarification, and she said yes, then that would suggest that it's difficult to do it administratively if it needs statutory action.
There's one additional sentence, I'm sorry, I didn't read. It explicitly states that a certificate of exemption is not required, because that is one way that I think the department has tried to administratively handle this, is if there's a certificate of exemption submitted, then they know it's an exempt sale. This removes that requirement for individuals. It clarifies to individuals when they're buying, it is presumed to be for residential use.
Yeah. Do we have the language to add?
Yes, it has been provided. Abby drafted it, I believe, for Senator Perchlik, and his request was, it was too late to do it on the finance side. It was acceptable to them. They support it. The question was, and it suggested maybe if he came to us, we would offer it as an amendment and move the bill out favorably as amended, or he could offer it individually himself. So I'm
Would
back
move
to
we
the
offer
original
the
question.
amendment and report the
Okay.
bill favorably as amended.
All right. Thank you, Senator Sears.
I'll
Is there a
second
second?
Second that.
Okay. So we have a motion to move this bill favorably as amended, and that amendment would be the clarification language around this sales tax exemption for the wood pellets being used for residential purposes, and getting rid of that statement requirement that you were referencing. So further discussion. Okay, so we'll let the clerk start clerking.
Senator Ballant,
Yes.
Senator Baruth, yes. Senator Nitka,
Yes.
Senator Sears,
Yes,
Senator Starr,
Yes,
Senator Westman,
yes,
Senator Kitchell.
Yes.
I just wanted to make a public service announcement. Jane has apparently been hacked on Facebook. So don't accept friend requests from Jane Kitchell. I notified Facebook and they're taking down that account, but it will take a couple of hours.
Okay. Nobody wants to be my friend anyway, so I knew it had to be a hack.
I thought you had a lot of friends.
Well, we do when we have money, you know that. I would say, Senator Baruth, you are, do you have taxes? So I guess you would report this amendment, the bill and the amendment.
Happy to do it.
Okay, so we move the bill favorably as amended on a 7-0-0 vote.
And I'll pass on, Chrissy, I assume you'll send a reply all email?
I will send a reply all email. And so is Abby going to be updating that amendment from a Perchlik amendment to?
Yes.
Okay, so as soon as I have that, I'll send it off.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Abby. So our next bill, so I keep moving my, our next one is H-122, which is boards and commissions.
Correct. And we have Amarin has joined us, and Senator White should be popping into the Zoom room any moment.
Okay, and is this the one that we struggled with yesterday about the $100?
That's correct.
All right.
What, I guess I should wait, but what is the, what does the local agency that's no longer going to be getting this money, have they concurred that this is a good idea?
You mean the 52,000 that they're still getting it? I think it's just distributed how the distribution occurs, but that's the question that we need to have confirmation. I think the amount doesn't change. It just goes to this statewide entity and then distributed.
I thought that they would then be deciding which programs it went to. The state would, rather than the local program. But anyway, let's find out.
Okay. I think what you're asking is, does this distribution change at all result in an area getting less money than they would have under the former distribution method?
Yes, or maybe none.
Well, that would be quite a bit less, wouldn't it? Amarin, can you answer that question while we're waiting?
For the record, Amarin Abergele, Legislative Counsel. So the language, let me look at the language to make sure that I am not misquoting here. I believe this is all the way down on page, let's see. Okay, it looks like it begins on page 13 of draft number 1.5, H122. You'll see that previously the language had each local emergency planning committee receiving a minimum grant, and then there was a range of $1,500 to $4,000.
Right.
And so the change now would be that there's still an annual grant from the Commissioner of Public Safety. However, the total amount that's being granted is not going to exceed $52,000. And it has to be divided in an equal amount among the local emergency planning committees.
So rather than having a spread, everybody is treated the same.
Oh, okay.
And then you'll see it does still have the language following after disbursement of the funding. The local planning committee, you'll see that the Commissioner of Public Safety at the Commissioner's discretion may make additional grants from the fund to any local agency, planning committee, or regional emergency response commission. You'll see that continues on to page 14.
Okay.
So
the distribution formula would be equal to all local entities, And if they needed more, they could appeal to the commissioner. And that replaces the variable grant possibility that existed under the old method.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Was there testimony? Is this a point of dispute? I mean, was this something that was done by request? I mean, seems like kind of an arcane change to make, but
This was language that was requested by the Division of Emergency Management at the Department of Public Safety. I do not know the origin
okay.
or the purpose or what problem they were trying to fix.
Okay. All right. I did send Senator White a comment about paying different per diems. And she indicated that there is capacity to alter that now if they fund it within their budget. And so I'm just wondering if that flexibility already exists, whether we actually need to have that language, because it raised a much larger question about who's getting a higher per diem, what is the basis for doing it, et cetera. So that was at the very first section. I think that was not in the House pass. That was something that got added in Senate GovOps. So I see we have the pleasure of your company, Senator White. Welcome. So maybe you could speak to the why you changed that per diem, and if there's already flexibility like you suggested, do we even need to address it?
The way the statute, first of all, the way the statute is written is for the Climate Council. It specifies that they are to give per diems according to the statute, and the statute says the per diems are $50 a day. That's so they don't have the flexibility of changing that. We do have some commissions and boards that have the ability to set their own per diems. They don't have to follow the statutorily mandate of $50 a day. And I told Senator Kitchell that I was really sorry, but I have all my notes from the Sunset Advisory Committee are up in Montpelier, and I don't remember which boards and commissions it is, but there are a few of them that have a budget within their agency or their department that they use for per diems for their board members, and they have the flexibility to set those. When we set up a board or a commission or council and say that they use the per diems according to the statute, and I don't know the citation now, Ameren would know that, it means $50 a day. And what we heard was that they aren't using the money because many of the people that are on the Climate Council are not taking their per diem. So they have a budget there that they're not using. There are many people, because we, in setting up the Climate Council, we told them that they had to work with many different groups of people. So they're working with small farmers from the Northeast Kingdom, and they're working with social equity people from Bennington, and they're working with lots of different groups of people that aren't normally involved in the process in boards and commissions. And we told them that they had to do that in our bill to set up the Climate Council. So what they're finding is that many of these people either have to give up some kind of paying job to participate in the meetings, or give up, as we know, farmers probably aren't giving up much income because they don't get paid much anyway, but they're giving up time to participate. And so what they're finding, the Climate Council is finding, is that they have people who would love to participate, but they simply can't because it's $50 a day. And we haven't changed that since sometime in the 80s, that $50 a day. And so they're just asking for the ability to use the budget that they have and give $100 to those people who need it, instead of not using it or giving $50 to people who don't need it.
Yeah, but that,
Yeah, Senator Starr, you have a comment?
well, I think that's a wonderful gesture, but I think that if we're gonna start paying different boards different amounts, that we ought to look at that across the entire spectrum of boards, and maybe it should be 75, but go from 50 to 100 is a pretty big jump.
Or should we consider doing getting rid of the amending the language that's there, referencing that current, and just do it like we do with others where they have some flexibility within the appropriation, and not put a bullseye on this?
I think that, so to answer Senator Starr's question, the Sunset Advisory Committee I think it's in its third year. And one of the huge issues before us this year is to look at the per diems and how we should be handling per diems across the board. Does everybody get the same per diem? We just passed $250 per diem for the
Broadband.
authority. And I know that they said part of that was because they have to do a lot of homework ahead of time. Well, I can tell you, I was on the State Community Development Board, and we got $50 a day, and we probably spent 5 full days in preparation for those meetings, but we still got $50 a day for the meeting. That was it. So I don't know how we can be equitable. And some boards and commissions meet for an hour or 2 hours, and they get $50 a day. Some boards and commissions meet all day long, and they get $50 a day. So it really is a question that needs a lot of looking at. And then Senator Kitchell, in response to of just removing that and letting them be flexible, I
don't have an opinion. I'm just raising it.
Yeah.
Could we make them similar to the other entities that you described, where they can have a little bit more flexibility within their budget?
Well, I don't know how we have done that in the past, because I can't remember which ones they are. The problem that they run into, that they have expressed to us, and also Ameren has expressed, is that they then don't have any guidelines they're spending public money without, should they give somebody $30 and somebody $80, and what are the guidelines and how do they make those decisions, which is why they thought just saying $100 made more sense, because they don't have any guidelines around this, and we're not setting any guidelines for them. So I don't know how. We had a lot of conversation about this in our committee, because some of us understood the plight of people who are trying to participate, but didn't want to make an exception and do it board by board and commission by commission. And so it was really mixed feelings, and it was with reluctance that we said this makes sense in this one instance, and over the summer, the Sunset Committee will look at all boards and commissions.
Okay, this was not in the House.
No, this came to us very late in 122. We've had 122 for a while, and we've been wrestling with this issue for a while, but it came to us only within like the last, Ameren, week and a half, 2 weeks.
At most.
Okay, comment, Alice, do you have a comment?
They're going to study it over the summer. It seems to me that would be the best way. There certainly are people on other commissions that leave their jobs to take the $50 a day, whether they take a day off from the regular job. I think it should all be fair. I understand the one we passed the other day, simply because it says it requires a lot of expertise right there in the bill. But I think that we should wait and have some more uniformity.
We tried all kinds of things to try and figure out how to solve this. We suggested that some philanthropist
Yeah.
might send them a thank you card with $50 in it. And I mean, we really tried everything we could try to figure out. And this is what it came down to, because they didn't want to be operating outside what seemed like outside of the law.
That was
So,
good.
and
Other,
it will be, this council will be done by December. So
Okay.
whatever we do over the summer isn't going to affect this council in any way,
Oh, okay.
because what we do over the summer will have to come back to the legislature in a bill form to be dealt with in January.
okay, because they're working on the plan that's due in December.
Yes.
Okay. Ameren, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that the council itself is not dissolving. It's just that the subcommittees who are doing the bulk of the work
Oh.
have to come up with help with the plan, which is every 4 years. So this first plan is due December 1st.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is, well, let me ask, is this going to remedy the problem, or we've only got what, 7 more months to go before the plan? Are they struggling with getting people to serve on the council, or are these or within these work groups?
That was our understanding. Is I don't know that they're struggling to get people. They are struggling to get some of the voices that they would like.
Oh, okay.
Well, that,
All right. Other comments? So this is between now and December.
Yes.
No, there will be no way of going back once you give it.
no, I think it would tilt the thinking of the committee that's going to be studying that. Well, we've got 2 groups out there already that are getting $100, and also now maybe we ought to raise it to 100. And I just think that once this committee comes to a conclusion and whatever they come up with, well, then we'll deal with that. But I think it's a little premature to give one group extra and the other groups are still going to be getting the 50.
That's a really good point, and I think that was one of the main issues that we dealt with. And I think that one of the conversations that we've already had on the Sunset Advisory Committee, and Brian Collmore and I are the 2 senators on there, is we should specify what per diems are at all, or if we should give a certain amount of money to agencies and departments that sponsor the boards and commissions, and let them figure out how to dole out
the problem
per
is
diem.
that it's going to get into that whole problem, whether we're talking about salary or per diems.
Right.
You're going to have such disparate treatment. I'm on this and spending all day getting $50, and you're a couple of hours and you're getting something. I don't know that.
Yeah, we've
that's-
had that discussion.
Yeah, I
and
bet you have, because this is something.
It's a huge mess
So
of an issue, and we underpay everybody, or almost everybody. And I put in a bill about 3 years ago to raise the the per diem for jury duty. We pay them $30 a day.
I know. That's, I think, why we're so reluctant to start down this road.
Yep.
Even
I
though
understand that.
we recognize the reality, it just is a matter of doing some of this ad hoc and recognizing that we probably, we heard from Bill Sorrell on his work, and he's saying he's working full time.
Yeah.
As a volunteer, basically. And so it gets into a real thorny area around what we expect, what we want to pay, and the equity, and how we do it in a systematic way. So I don't think we are dismissive at all of the complexity or the nature of your discussion. I think the question really is, at this point, without the benefit of the summer study committee, recognizing the limitations or problems that it creates here, but probably exist in a variety of other places that maybe haven't spoken up. Do we want to move away from that standard per diem? And I think the committee was feeling very reluctant. And when I mentioned it, as I said to the House Appropriations Chair, it was with the same kind of concern about doing that.
Well, if I can say what the committee vote in GovOps was 1 no, 2 yes, and 2 reluctant. Yes.
So
That's
Oh.
really,
so I guess you're seeing that this committee is not too different than where you were. So committee, do you want to take a stand? I think Alice, you kind of expressed your concern, and that would be not to agree to that. I think Bobby sentiment is the same. Do we, anyone else want to speak up? My concern is when we start doing things ad hoc, we end up creating a lot of disjuncture in places that we never anticipated, where other people will say, well, look at me, I'm even, I actually have a more compelling case, and I just didn't come and make my case known. So other thoughts? Senator Westman, Senator, you've been around a long time. Rich, what's your thought?
I'm reluctant to do anything. I'll just tell you what I see at home. Joan is on the Human Rights Commission. She spends 2 and 3 days getting ready for many times very difficult housing cases where landlords have been taken in and are challenged, and she gets $50 a day. And sometimes she spends 2 and 3 days getting ready for that 1 day of work.
Wow.
So I guess that kind of states why you would think it creates a real inequity here.
Yep.
Anyone else want to speak up? Yes, Senator Ruth.
I feel the same. I would just say that I think the committee, whoever reports that, should also say that we support the Sunset Commission's looking into raising everybody across the board because it's past time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it isn't even raising everybody. It might be a whole different approach to the way we do per diems.
Well,
Yeah.
Whatever, but a more
Equitable.
system that isn't
Yeah.
so punitive in terms of
Right.
what it offers.
And the other thing maybe to say out loud is that the people would get mileage to the meetings, just so that that's known out there.
Except most of them don't get mileage now. They're not going anywhere.
I'll zoom.
Okay, well,
Oh, and you bring your own sandwich. Senator Sears, are you of the
Well, I
same
was
mind?
only gonna mention that I agree with Senator Westman in it. There, at some point, we need to look at how we do this for everyone.
mhm.
And maybe they should make what we make
Oh,
an hour.
You mean below minimum wage?
You really wanna get mean, don't you?
Okay.
No, but in all seriousness, I think particularly in my area of the state, a lot of people don't apply for these boards and commissions simply because the distance to travel.
Yeah.
Now with Zoom and so forth, it hasn't been that same problem.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's still a ways to drive to Montpelier for meetings, and
I will tell you that this isn't for boards and commissions, but even on the summer study committees that we sent up for ourselves. When I first got on one, I was on it with Patty O'Donnell, and we were meeting for like an hour and a half very often. It was on the Mental Health Oversight Committee, and we were meeting an hour and a half very often, and we were getting our per diems for all those meetings. And she and I both revolted and said, we shouldn't be meeting so often. We should have all-day meetings, and we'll save money for the state. I mean, it affects us also how we do our per diems and how we, and none of it is fair at all. But I appreciate your willingness to even look at this issue, and we'll respect your your
All right,
decision.
thank you very much, Jeanette. So,
Thanks. I'm
we
gonna go
did,
back to committee.
I think we don't have any other bills for you today, do we?
No, I think you have Anthony next.
Oh, yes, that's on the,
You
ethics
didn't,
committee.
the 377, you don't need that, right? Because there's no appropriation in there. I don't know quite why it got to you.
377, is that the ethics?
No, 377 is the state publications of,
Oh, I know. The only thing, and I don't know, is maybe it's because the librarian can establish a charge, but that usually gets into,
that, I think that has already been in finance, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure. And it actually is saving money because,
yeah, I know. I know. We'll move it out pretty quickly.
okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, thank you,
Bye.
Senator White. So, the question is, do we want to amend the bill by striking that section and then move the bill favorably?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll so move.
Okay, and seconded by Alice.
Okay.
And,
I was muted.
and Ameren, you will write up the, amendment for the committee.
Yes.
Okay, so we have, a motion to move the bill favorably as amended, and the amendment would be to strike the section on that per diem of the $100 a day. I think it's probably section 1, I'm not sure. Section 11A. And any discussion? Otherwise, we'll call the roll.
Senator Ballin? Senator Ballin? Senator Baruth, yes. Senator Nitka?
Yes.
Senator Sears?
Yes.
Senator Starr?
Yes,
Senator Westman?
Yes.
Senator Kitchell?
Yes.
I don't know if you feel the need to hold that open, Madam Chair.
No, let's see. This is,
601, but Becca wasn't online.
yeah, okay. And let's see, who would report that? It's boards and commissions, which I'm just thinking.
I think it's Bobby.
I think general government, it seems like it's coming under general government. So I think that's Senator Starr.
no, it's fine with me.
Okay, so Ameren will give us the amendment, and you'll be the reporter, and the vote was 601. And then you can confirm it once we have it. We'll move on to the next bill.
Oh, there's Becca, Madam Chair.
Oh, Becca, we're moving the bill favorably, but striking the section that would change the per diem. We felt that was getting into a much larger discussion, and even Senator White admitted the response from her committee was very divided on whether that was
Okay.
Creating disjuncture and there's a need to do it, but to do it this way was not exactly a 5-0-0 vote in that committee. So we're 601, and if you want to vote.
Sure. Yes.
Becca Ballin, yes. Okay, 700.
Okay, and so we're moving the bill favorably as amended, which would be striking 11A, section 11A. And Senator Starr is the reporter. So our next is H-135, and that's the act related to the state's ethics committee. And I think that's creating a position for a half-time administrative assistant.
That's correct.
Okay. And do we have Senator Polina in the waiting room?
He has not joined us yet, but he should be with us any moment. And we have
Okay.
Ameren to help us as well.
All right. Well, since Ameren's here, if you want to run through the bill, it's pretty short, I think, isn't it?
It's about 15 pages,
Oh, that's not so short.
but the the first section really goes into subchapter 2 of chapter 31 on governmental ethics and makes a series of changes to the current disclosure requirements for executive officers as well as members of the commission. And it's really just to change this from a biennial disclosure to an annual disclosure. So that takes a portion of the beginning of the bill. And then I would say that goes through sort of page 4. And then when you get into subchapter 3, talking about the State Ethics Commission creation, there's some cleanup language through here. There's a lot of, this is mostly a technical bill to provide cleanup and conforming language with some, with a few substantive changes. So I don't know whether you want me to go into full detail on everything or just sort of cruise through. Well, oh, I see Senator Polina might be in the waiting room.
Okay. Well, we certainly don't need to go over a lot of changing the reporting timeframes. The ones that are more cleanup, no. Maybe just the substantive changes might be helpful. And then the reason I believe it's here is there needs to be a position created, which is a half-time administrative assistant to the commission. So that's as far as we've gotten, Senator Polina, as to where the substantive changes were made in the Ethics Commission. And that was, what did you say about section 6? Or I can't remember, 4?
So the section relating to the position is at the end.
Oh, I know that. No, I meant
okay.
in terms of the run through of the bill.
Oh, where were we? Okay, we were looking in subchapter 3, right? So section 1 is the majority of the bill. And within that, it makes changes within the chapter on governmental ethics. So I believe we were around on page 6.
Okay.
One of the substantive changes is in subdivision 5A, changing the length of the term of commission members from 3 years to 5 years, and requiring that members shall be staggered so that no 2 terms expire at the same time. So that is one of the substantive changes. And then moving down through page 7 into page 8. Actually, I don't see any changes in there. Onto page 9, we have some conforming language changes to make sure we're saying personnel policy and procedure manual instead of code of ethics. And then on page 10, there are no changes. On page 11, this was a substantive change that is really intended to clarify the circumstances under which the commission is issuing guidance and issuing advisory opinions. So you see this is now specifying that the executive director should only be giving guidance to a person who is or will be subject to the provisions of this chapter.
Is this how it came over from the House? This is nothing changed on the Senate?
So the
I think,
Senate,
I'm sorry, just not to interrupt, Amron, but it's really just to clarify. It is basically the way it came from the House. I think we added the word only.
you did add the word only.
Okay. All right.
And moving into page 12, similarly for advisory opinions, this language is as it came over from the House. And then moving into page 13, commission reports. Again, this was not a place that government operations made any changes on the Senate side. And there's really more clarifying language. One of the substantive changes in here, you'll see on line 14 on page 13, this begins section 2, and this amends the session law that creates the funding source surcharge for the commission. And you'll see on page 14 in subsection B of this session law, this changes the repeal of that funding source surcharge from June 30th, 2021 to July 1st, 2022. And that was just reviewed by Senate Finance earlier this week.
I think that was the funding mechanism that we set up. Stephanie, are you on?
Yes.
Okay, that's how we were funding, if I remember that correctly.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, okay, so finance looked at it, but I think that was actually how the Appropriations Committee was able to put together a mechanism to fund the work of the commission.
Yes.
Through the
Okay.
surcharge, yes.
Yes.
On the internal service fund.
Yeah, okay. So we're just affirming what we did here.
You're
Yes.
extending the time by which you
Right.
can,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So
And we'll keep going. That's the staggered 5-year term that you mentioned.
Yep, section 3 is implementing the change in the staggered terms, given that the members will be serving for 2 additional years. And then section 4 is the creation of the 0.5 full-time equivalent administrative assistant position.
Okay, and that was in the House as well?
No.
It was originally in the first bill. It passed out of House Government Operations with a position in there. Actually, the original bill gave the commission permission to hire staff within the statute, and then House Appropriations was trying to figure out what that cost would be, who exactly the commission wanted to hire for staff in terms of a position. And then I think there was a bit of a miscommunication about when the position was needed. Some people thought it was after the commission has a state code of ethics codified. And so it was taken out. The staffing language was taken out by House Appropriations. And so it did not make it through the House.
And then Senate Gov Ops is recommending that it be put back in, and that the
Yes.
funding would be just part of that surcharge, would be funded through that mechanism.
Yeah, my understanding is that the position does not require any new funding for fiscal year 2022 that it could be covered by the current funding for fiscal year 2022.
But if you're adding a position and adding costs, if you've got, it does represent potentially an ongoing cost that would have to be recognized in the future.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, and so that's really the big change that the Senate Gov Ops made, was to get the position back in, half an administrative position. Okay. Any other comments you want to addition, Senator Polina?
No, just to confirm that I understand what you're saying, that it represents a cost down the road. But in the immediate term, it's money that would be what remains in their balance of their revenue.
Yeah.
They would have to actually get request to get the spending authority back from finance and management. And they've got a memo talking about that. But they have a budget of about $113,000 a year. And there's about $60,000 left over that they have not spent. So that money was going to go towards operating costs. But their theory is that money would go towards this half-time person for now.
Yeah, for this coming year.
Right.
Okay. Other comments about the commission? It seems like that's a lot of it is the cleanup and dealing with the staggering of terms, 5-year terms, and then the other is just adding the staffing.
Right. It's kind of, the bill itself is kind of technical changes to how the commission operates. We're actually taking testimony right now about the state code of ethics proposal, which would come before the Senate probably next year.
Okay. Other questions or comments? I think it's fairly straightforward.
Yep.
Okay.
No.
Does any further questions or discussion? Do we want to have a motion to move the bill favorably?
Yeah, I'll move the bill favorably.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion to move H-135 favorably.
Yeah.
Knowing that we are agreeing to the creation of that position. Stephanie, is that a state classified position? Do we have to create the position? In other words, is this a position we're just funding? I can't remember the status of the commission, or is this just giving them the authority, or are we having to create a position here?
I think if the intent is that it's a part-time position, right?
Yes.
But I still think you have to create the position, even though the funding is only part, the expectation is that the funding provided will be only for the part-time nature of it. Unless you're expecting this to be covered by a contractual arrangement or a temp arrangement.
Says one new exempt half-time position.
Yeah. And so I do think that's the intent, is to actually have it work done by a state employee.
Okay, so we are authorizing the creation of a new part-time exempt position.
Yeah.
Okay, is that how it's reading a creation, where the creation of?
I don't, when you actually create it, I don't know if you specify part-time. We don't usually do that. You usually, with the funding, you are specifying that.
No, my question is, I need to go back. Does it say we are,
there is
the creation
established
of this position is authorized?
The exact language says the executive director, with the consent of the State Ethics Commission, is authorized to establish one new exempt 0.5 full-time
So it's usually the
position.
legislature.
The
that establishes the
legislature
position.
establishes the position. That's what I'm trying to get clear. So
You would
the
say there is
legislature,
established.
okay.
Yeah.
So we need to modify that language, because no position is created without the legislature actually creating it. So it's technical, but we've got to modify that language, which means that we would move the bill favorably as amended once we get that correct language. And Stephanie can work with Ameren, or Ameren can look at the standard language around the creation of a position.
And the most standard place is in the E100 of a budget bill.
Okay, so I think we've, so we have a motion to move the bill by Senator Starr, seconded by Senator Westman. We've now clarified that we do need to amend it to have that language around the creation of a position to read differently than it's currently in the bill. So the motion would be to move the bill favorably as amended.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
Just let me say something. Is it all set with regard to the new attorney? Is that part all taken care of and established and set?
The attorney for the executive director of the commission? Yes.
Is that the lawyer, or the executive director can hire a lawyer, I thought?
The executive director he is a lawyer. Yeah, he's a lawyer. It's funny, I'm having a brain freeze, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a lawyer.
I'm not. It looked like there was an attorney that could be hired for the commission, not the person who's already there.
No.
And that money was in the emergency management budget. Maybe it's existing money, but changing how it's going out. But I just
in emergency management.
That's what I read.
This is
the Ethics Commission.
I wonder. Maybe I've got some notes mixed up here, but I think, is there an
originally I had thought that what they were asking for was the hiring of an attorney, but when I read the amendment, it's an administrative assistant position. So maybe that's the source of confusion. Okay, so other questions or discussion? Otherwise,
can I just ask a technical question? Yes. Does this mean you're going to offer an amendment to the bill on the floor, or you're going to amend it before it moves out? I'm just curious how that works.
We will, when the bill is reported, there will be a report from the Appropriations Committee, and we will report this amendment, changing the language on the position, and then recommend the bill move forward as we're proposing it, as proposed in our amendment.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? If not, the clerk will start calling the roll.
Senator Ballant,
Yes.
Senator Baruth, yes. Senator Nitka,
Yes.
Senator Sears,
Yes.
Senator Starr,
Yes.
Senator Wethman,
Yes.
Senator Kitchell.
Yes.
Okay, 700.
So, let's see, Ethics Commission is Senator Baruth.
I will
According to
Sure.
my
Did you-
little sheet.
Did you say Senator Baruth has ethics?
Yes.
Boy.
first person ever to say that, really.
I'm just checking.
So we will move on to our next bill. Thank you for coming in, Senator Polina, and the
Thanks for your
bill
work. I
being
appreciate
moved
it.
favorably as amended
Thank
to
you.
make that change. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
See you all later.
Yeah.
So now we have H 337, which we don't know why we're getting, because it has to do with limiting the number, the distribution of publications. And the librarian can establish a charge. And so we're getting it because we're not going to be spending money. We're going to be saving money. So I see we have Tucker Anderson, who seems to have changed his facial appearance since the last time. He has been before the committee. So do you want to give us a run through on H 337? And I think we can move it out quite quickly.
Sure. Good afternoon, Tucker Anderson, Office of Legislative Counsel. The 30,000 foot view is that H 337 is taking existing duties of the state librarian to distribute state publications, condensing them down into one section. There are a handful of sections where outdated duties of the state library are being deleted, struck, potentially repealed. But the heart of the bill is in section 6. It takes about 10 other sections from the VSAs concerning the distribution of the Vermont statutes annotated and the acts and resolves, puts them all in one place, and reduces the number of these publications that are going to be distributed automatically to certain officers of the state. So it's a net reduction of the number of these volumes that are going to be distributed by the state librarian.
Mm-hmm. And other parties can request, but they have to request as opposed to having it sent and oftentimes sitting on a shelf or never used. So, so we have this bill that would actually save us money with the distribution of these volume that we produce as a legislature. So questions or a motion to move the bill favorably? Senator Westman.
Yeah, I have a motion to move the bill favorably. I just say, I suspect most of these are all online now too. So they all still have access.
We had that discussion with the Westlaw and all the volumes, the law library, which we moved to Vermont Law, as a matter of fact. So we have a motion to move the bill favorably. Could I have a second? A second, Senator Ballant. Other discussion? Otherwise, we'll have the clerk call the roll.
Senator Ballant,
Yes.
Senator Baruth, yes. Senator Nitka,
Yes.
Senator Sears,
Yes.
Senator Starr,
Yes.
Senator Westman,
Yes.
Senator Kitchell.
Yes. You happen to have libraries again, Senator Baruth.
I'm all about it.
You're all about it. So now you're an ethical reader.
Can I report that it was a love fest?
Please don't.
I dare you. Okay, so we are moving this bill favorably, 7-0, and Senator Baruth is the reporter. And we like it. It's the reverse of what we do. We're saving money.
Yes.
So now we're actually 3 minutes ahead, believe it or not. And we're down to H 106. and that is the education bill. And I believe that includes the amendment on the school, on the local foods for schools. So I think Brian Campion, Senator Campion, is scheduled to come in, and Jim Demaray.
Madam Chair, if I could just say, I did text Senator Campion about the tax bill and the piece on small school grants. He says his committee did not see it. They passed the yield bill to finance without looking through it. So he is interested in taking a look at that. Just a heads up.
Well, I guess then you've given him the heads up to look at it then?
I did.
Okay, well, we can, or you can mention it again when he comes in here on.
Yeah, I think he already contacted Senator Cummings, so.
Okay, all right. And then at 3 o'clock, we're going back to the committee of conference.
So I have notes to Senator Campion and Jim that we're ready, so they should be joining us any moment, and their committee assistant is helping kind of move them along a bit.
Okay. All right. And Senator Ballin, how are things going in economic development?
They are moving along.
Okay.
Thank you for that bill today.
Confident.
What was that, Bobby?
You didn't sound very confident that you were getting a bill out there today.
Oh, it will come out. There's some brinksmanship going on, you see. There's just some brinksmanship between the two bodies, so we will see.
Thank you for that bill today that Senator Clarkson put out. I really appreciate that.
As I'm very excited about it too, Senator. Thank you.
What one is that?
The liquor bill, probably.
Oh, that got Senator Westman excited?
Yeah, he's got a whole bunch of liquor people up there doing moonshine.
Oh,
we are doing moonshine.
You've got some high-end distillers who are really looking for some.
I'm still waiting to see if we could get our Taiwan resolution out.
I would like to do that.
Now that we don't have Senator Galbraith blocking it.
Yeah.
I know. You know, they're a major trade partner. Vermont is one of it's one of the major foreign markets for Vermont. It was quite astounding, the trade relationship with Taiwan. Of course, they're pretty nervous now with all the sort of the saber rattling that they're getting from China, mainland China.
Yeah.
So could be interesting. Our world seems to be so fraught. The Middle East again, that's sad, just sad.
They're all messed up.
Oh gosh. And you think about how many thousands of innocent people and children are caught in, and just the trauma. And then on the news last night, this rancher on the Rio Grande, they found, what was it, 5 children, 7 and under. One was only like 11 months old. And the farmer said if he hadn't have found them, they probably would have died. It's just sad.
Well, there's a lot of climate refugees that are not recognized as such that, you know, we're fighting about in the US, whether they exist or not, but all over the world, people are moving out of flooded places or drought places. And
yeah, well, that was true in Central America. Guatemala has just been devastated from those the hurricanes. And then I'm sure in Africa and sub-Saharan areas that there's just a lot of migration because food supply is.
But the level of government corruption in Guatemala and El Salvador has also drives people out. There's no. That's part of the problem. Is the
you're right.
We have not paid the attention we should be to Latin America at all as a nation. And this is I think over the last 40 years, you'll find that.
Well, some of what we've done is tended to destabilize it even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the ridiculousness of closing off Cuba once again. That's just, you know,
Well,
in terms of foreign policy, that just is.
And you know, it takes forever for people to get a passport or a green card or get into this country legally. Takes forever to accomplish that.
But
And
if we were to help those countries stabilize.
I know, they say just a modest amount of foreign aid because they have so little would need so much. I see Senator Campion has joined us.
Yes, it's great to be here. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
We're so happy to see you because we want to move this bill out.
Fabulous.
And we have Jim, I see, is here as well.
Yeah.
So if you would like to run through the bill, and we know that there's also that amendment that you did add. We'd had some discussion as it related to the appropriation we had on local foods for schools. I believe this is the bill that amendment is been added to.
Great.
Okay,
so I can give an overview and then I'll leave the details to Jim if that works.
Yeah, that would be great.
Great. So thank you. For the record, Brian Campion, State Senator for Bennington County and Wilmington. Glad to be here. And for those watching from the Bennington Banner Newsroom, I just want to say hi to all of you as well. I don't see I don't see Senator Sears here today, but I'm sure.
I'm right over here, Senator Campion. But
wait, you're muted. Can't hear you.
So I think the article is Senator Campion makes a major presentation of legislation to the Money Committee.
That's right.
I can see the headline.
That's
the
right.
Powerful Money Committee.
To the Powerful Money Committee. Yes. All right.
As the other senator from Bennington looked on.
Right. In all seriousness, thanks for having me. This is H106, the community schools bill that we received from the House. The way I've been talking about it is we had, and in some ways still have, a community school in Bennington. Molly Stark School, really, I don't know, maybe about 20 years ago, was a more of a very much a community full service institution. The former
they had a dental clinic.
They had a dental clinic. They had healthcare. They were, reaching out for psych services, all those kinds of things. And as the House has proposed this, we would continue that model, or we would really jumpstart that model in roughly 30 schools that need it the most. They had a process where schools would apply and they would go through some kind of vetting process. We thought, we know that the Agency of Education, and we trust that they know the schools that would benefit from this the most, to have a coordinator, if you will, of community schools at, these 30 schools. And we think it would be incredible to have for the next 3 years, this one person that, again, would be a resource to families, to teachers, to students, first and foremost, that would reach out and cover and get them the access they need to, if they're dealing with trauma, and you'll see that we address trauma a lot in this bill, if they need those dental appointments, basically try to provide those services to children that again, might not be able to access those services as other children can. And we know that there would be a big impact, a positive income out, to educational outcomes. It's also, we felt, just the right thing to do. We don't want, a child to be struggling with trauma. We don't want a child to be struggling in pain, whether it's a physical, mental, it could be a cavity, all those kinds of things that impact the lives of children and some can prevent them from having, the success that they deserve academically, or just the general happiness to be a kid. So we thought this was a really good way to sort of have a cultural shift around this. We know that there are, again, a lot of schools that are going to need these kinds of things. The House kept referring to it as a pilot. We really think this is more than a pilot. This is really getting things going, and that these people would stay in these positions for a long time. And then, of course, the other two pieces of the bill we did from S100, we put the language in that would get us to a study to universal school meals down the road, and the creation of the food markets, the local food markets that we also put in this bill. So it has become a universe, a community school, and we keep referring to it also as with nutritional aspects to it, recognizing that healthy meals are also a big important aspect of sort of a full service school. So that's, we had a vote out of committee. I believe it was 6-0-0. It's possible we had someone absent, but we had good, strong support, and appreciate your willingness to consider this.
So the funding source of this is the federal ESSER money to create these models, or in some ways they're building on the Bennington Molly Stark experience, but in sort of a more transformational of where the schools fit in the larger community context. Okay, Senator Sears, you wanted to get above the
I just
fold?
want to question the vote. I think we should get accurate information from the chair of education and not guesses. I think it's important that we know
No.
what the vote actually was.
That.
Oh, you don't want a tentative vote. You want to know.
I'd like to know. I mean, I find it disheartening.
So let me ask Senator Campion. The Agency of Education has not always looked with great enthusiasm about these legislative proposals that are spending the ESSER money. Could you just tell us, how was this legislation received by the agency that's going to have to administer it?
Sure. We had quite a bit of back and forth with the agency on this. They had some other concerns as well, which I think we got to a good place on. In other words, they wanted that first year. They recognize, they want that first year as a year of planning for schools to plan, that it's not going to go into effect right away. That's what the bill says. I think they were also comfortable. They liked the way that we moved away from a grant program and that we were really trusting them to go out and identify those 30 schools that needed this the most. The ESSER fund piece is one that I think they are still, it's still a question for them. I think the way the deputy secretary wrote back to me finally was, yes, and we still have questions about, the appropriation of ESSER funds. So that still is a looming question.
I see. Okay. And the language, Senator Starr, go ahead, Senator Baruth, and I'll ask Senator Starr about the local food piece, if that, I believe is.
Pull out that last point a little bit.
Yeah.
Did they say they have questions, or I sort of understood them to be asserting, legal authority over the appropriation of that money? Is that, would you characterize it that way? Are they still?
I think they recognize now that the legislature has the power to appropriate. I mean, okay. One of their letters did recognize that. And
it's our constitutional obligation or requirement.
Absolutely.
In all honesty. But you're right, Senator Baruth, that issue was raised. And the fact is, some of the earlier ESSER money was spent without the legislative involvement. And we're struggling with, in the budget conference, we're going to be looking at, should we in fact go back and appropriate those dollars, because that's our constitutional obligation. But they were advancing that argument that the authority to spend the money was with them, and that they didn't need the legislative involvement. But as Senator Campion said, a subsequent communication affirmed that was recognizing that role and responsibility of the legislature. But even with that, the question then becomes one of, if we're giving the administering agency a task or a vision, and how these schools can benefit sort of from, and to me, the important thing is to say schools can't solve it all. The question is how all these other resources or community supports are organized and brought to bear for the benefit of the kids. Because there's been a tendency to say, oh, we'll let the school take care of it. And the schools are saying, but it's not our responsibility to, to be addressing all these various demands and needs that we see children have by virtue of being in school. So it kind of changes that whole thinking about the children that are coming to school today have to have the benefit of all these systems coming together. So, but it takes, the reason I ask is if there's not a passion and there's not a vision on the part of the administering entity, sometimes it doesn't achieve the outcomes that you want. And that's the basis for my question.
I should also mention, we have worked with them very closely on every single bill that has come out of our committee, whether it's literacy, school discipline, this, and they, it's interesting that the timing a little bit on some of their concerns, because, even right now, I know with school construction, for example, they have been incredibly supportive of the school construction bill all the way. And now I know House Chair Webb is receiving memos that they are concerned with different parts of how the bill has developed, or actually was even in its original form. They're going back and having concerns. So I'm not sure, but where they are going to land on everything. But we've worked very closely with them. They have been an integral part of all of our conversations.
Senator Starr, do you have any comments about the part on this, on the food? That should look very familiar to you.
Yeah, that's section 7 of Brian's bill. And, it looks good. And the idea behind all of this is if our local producers realize that they can pick up, 15, 20% of the total produce market that schools are using, they will invest in ways to keep that product throughout the winter months.
Well, when do I get my washing station, Senator Starr?
Well, you should have gotten that 2 years ago, and it's a disgrace that that's dragged on as long as it has.
We'll keep going.
The quickest way would be for you to do a short-term loan to your nephew to acquire that. But no, I think this is very good, and it sets the program up so by 2023, the schools will be at 20% of their produce. And I wish I had the numbers to give to you what dollar amount that adds up to, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that goes through the hot lunch program for produce. And it's sat on somewheres in a warehouse out west, and then it rides across the country on a truck for days and sits here. So we'll feed our children much better if we can use locally produced foods.
So
and
Alice,
also,
you have a question?
if I may, Senator Kitchell, just also, we heard this morning, it's millions of dollars that stay right here in Vermont. Millions and millions that don't go out. So
Senator Nitka has a question or comment.
Any place in Vermont, we're talking about local, but is local the entire state for any school?
The school district defines local itself. So they would define what local would be. So they might say, for example, down here, you might go over to Cambridge, New York, you might go down to Williamstown, Massachusetts, but hopefully people will stay.
And does it say that in here, Brian?
Yeah, it does say that. I believe it says that the definition of local is made by each district.
And is it clear that you can go out of state if you
Yeah.
don't have it in your area?
I'll leave that to Ledge Council, but I don't know why. I mean, you could say we're not limiting you in terms of miles or anything like that.
No, but state lines, you believe you can clearly go across state lines?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, it's within
Yeah.
a certain mileage range. I think it's 30,
Mileage?
35 miles.
Mileage would be a problem. Jim, do you know how that's?
So let me clarify that the first year of the grant program is based upon the school district's local definition. But however, after the first year of the grant program, if you want to get grants going forward, you have to use the state definition of local.
Right.
Which is
So there
defined-
is a state definition then.
There is a state definition. It's very complicated. It's an ag definition. I'm not that familiar with it. I'll pull it up just in case you've got questions, but it's a very complicated definition.
I thought it was something like 35 miles.
That's what you're referencing, the ag. So I guess the answer is there is a definition of local that's been promulgated by the Department of Agriculture.
I'll
In the
post,
first year, it's local, whatever you want. is
But for
what-
the first year,
Yeah.
there's some discretion on the part of the LEA to make that determination.
Right.
I mean, for many of us along the river, we,
Yeah.
New Hampshire is
Yeah.
very close. Although the food production in New Hampshire doesn't seem to be anywhere developed, but along parts of Massachusetts, there's still an awful lot of production there. And not so much, obviously, Lake Champlain, it's kind of a barrier, but I guess if you want the definitions, Alice, we can get them from the statute.
I just don't want schools to be stuck, if they're in an area where they can't get the foods they want to have that are a Vermont food that might.
And maybe Black River Produce, for example, some of their producers are right across the river.
Right.
Yeah.
so I just posted the definition in your chat box. So I'll do it right now so you can see it.
Okay.
I'll have to open it. Wait a minute.
Any other questions while we're looking at that? Senator Campion.
Okay, that's my overview. And
I'm getting a call right now from the banner asking about your testimony. So I've got to run.
Otherwise, you'd vote for it. You'd love to. You'd love to say
they want to
love
know
to
why
pass the bill, but you just can't. You have to.
they want to know why Campion's pushing Moses corn that's grown over in Hoosick Falls, New York.
Yeah, you know who's going to be the first one bringing the raspberries over to the elementary school for about $20 a pint? It's going to be Sears.
Oh, his
Absolutely.
PFOA raspberries. Oh,
Well, we'll have to get.
I mean, you should see those. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah.
This big, right?
Exactly.
Alice, did you get that? All right.
I did. I'm trying to read it, but it looks like it's any place in Vermont. Just by not reading every word, it looks like it is any place in Vermont.
If you look at subsection D at the end,
Yeah.
there's a reference to 30 miles of the point of sale, but it's specific to a certain part of the definition. So there is, anyway.
Some flexibility outside the state of Vermont itself then. That's what Senator Starr was referencing, the 30 miles
Right.
then. Okay.
I need to go back to committee.
right.
We're wrapping up.
Okay,
Thank
any
you.
other questions? Otherwise, we need a motion to move the bill favorably. I have Senator Baruth, his hand is up.
Oh, he's,
Okay, motion by Senator Bruce, seconded by Senator Starr. Further discussion? Otherwise, we'll have the clerk call the roll. Thank you very much, Brian.
Senator
you.
Ballin,
Yes.
Senator Baruth, yes. Senator Nitka,
Yes.
Senator Sears. Senator Sears,
Yes.
Senator Starr,
yes.
Senator Westman,
Yes.
Senator Kitchell.
Yes.
Okay, 700.
how come the chair of ed wasn't here to vote on this? Senator Sears, maybe you ought to call the banner.
Well, now the general education is Senator Ballin. Do you want to be the reporter of this, or do you want to yield to somebody else?
No, I'm game.
Okay, all right. So Senator Ballin will be the reporter. We're moving the bill favorably, no amendments, 7-0.
I think
so-
the reformer should be notified of that.
Oh,
Really, the reformer,
The
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 Pennington-
reporter is the same for the reformer and the banner, so they'll both get publicity
That's right.
for this particular.
hmm. Oh, that's good thinking. So I think we are finished our agenda for today.
I do.
Chrissy,
I
we
do
have
have a-
all the bills.
You are correct. You've gone through everything for today.
Don't forget, if you're a reporter, to let the Secretary of the Senate's office know you're the reporter and confirming the vote and so forth. And then we're going to move into our committee of conference, and everyone is obviously, if you want to spend a few hours of your day, I don't think it'll be that long. We're going back and see what we can wrap up on the committee conference for the budget. So
How's it look?
I do have a comment for Senator Sears. The comment you made before about the way we deal with Latin America. I've twice in my life stood in a yard at the presidential palace in Santiago, Chile, where the bullet holes are still in the wall when they killed Allende.
I've been to Santiago, but I didn't make a stop there.
Well, we were with friends that live in Santiago that are Chilean. And
that's right. That's right. When you were down eating seafood and skiing in the Andes.
when you went skiing, but it's quite striking. And at that, when you stand in the yard and you still see the bullet holes, it makes you, you know,
Well,
as
let
an
me tell you,
American-
when you go to Bosnia and see the buildings still all shot up, you really makes you realize. And you think about Sarajevo under siege and the families there for 3 years, and the only supplies were what they got through this very primitive tunnel from the airport to the center of town. It just really brings home how for 3 years or whatever, for prolonged periods, that people are just living in this environment of death and shelling and lack of food and medical supplies. And it really is, it just really does hit you. And with Bosnia, it was like, I don't think Americans really grasped what was happening to the, that was really an assault on civilians. So it really, when you experience it directly, it is quite, it's quite impactful. So, all right, well, we'll see you all later, and your conferees will go off. We really haven't moved on a lot of issues, Alice, more the technical cleanup, simply because their policy committees are having to go back and reconsider what we proposed in our budget. So our budget's a response to what they did. Now they're responding. And so at this point, I would say we still have the major areas still are open.
Thanks.
But we'll keep you posted once we get to those. But that gets into certainly around the judiciary, the startup, the childcare, because they've moved that amendment out, and that amendment to the childcare bill was one that Stephanie was helpful in drafting. So Senator Lyons' plan.
Well, there's
and
going
our
to be
plan. What?
DCF just got guidance today on the stabilization grants.
Uh-huh.
And so it looks like we're not going to be able to use that for workforce. So the bottom part of that amendment, where we are going to offset with other federal funds, is probably going to come into play.
We'll have to use general fund then, one-time general.
Yeah,
fund.
we'll have to flip out the pieces. It may take more of an amendment in the in the budget bill. So what Kimberly Jessup was going to put on the table today has to wait a day, and we'll recraft it given the guidance that just came this afternoon.
Well, I thought they concurred with the bit, they concurred and voted it out.
Did you vote it today?
No, we did not. I thought the House voted their
They
amendment
did,
yesterday.
they voted it yesterday and messaged it today, I think.
Okay.
And we got the guidance today. So the guidance came after the amendment.
So should we amend it in?
We may need to amend it.
Okay,
We may need to send it back one more time.
okay. Oh,
Given the
gee, when we
guidance.
thought, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I
We
thought
thought it
we
was
had
gonna
some
take longer
I
for
thought we
guidance
had
to
some
come.
language in the amendment. If it wasn't permissible, we would use general fund.
Yeah.
So maybe
We would use we've had a conversation, I left briefly, and we had a conversation with Sarah Truckle and Sean Brown with the House members, because they had just gotten the notice that from Sarah Truckle that the guidance came, and then they have to commit 90% of it in a certain way. It has to flow through the childcare providers. It can't flow, and it has to come after the support of the childcare providers. So we're looking at the childcare development block grant. The basic block grant can be swapped out to use it. We don't have the guidance on the ARPA block grant piece yet, whether or not there's going to be any change from normal block grant. But across all the settings, we'll be able to cover it. We're not going to be able to cover it with the stabilization grant at this point.
okay, but I thought we had some fallback language. If that was not permissible, then general fund.
We do. It's in that H7171 amendment.
So doesn't that take care of it? We just have to
may
do
or
it
may
in the
not.
budget?
We may still need to do a bit more in the budget.
Okay, well, that's what I mean. We can take care of it in the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to look at the amendment again and see if there's since it hasn't, it could go back one more time if we could, so we want to do both of them together again.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to adjourn so that we can reconvene in 1 minute.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Y'all tomorrow.
Thank you.